Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back with our next panel discussion on AR and VR in sports, from keeping fans entertained to improving training. Let me first introduce you to our moderator, Mr. Munish Dhiman. He's the CEO Gesture Research Lab. For the panelists, we have Mr. Pradeep Khanna. He's the CEO Global Mindset, Executive Director Asia Pacific Sydney, President and Global Co-Chair Education VR AR Association. Mr. Chhaya, co-founder and CEO GoPhygital, Mr. Ankush Sharma, CEO Yeppar, Mr. Sanan Goyal, project head QWR Interactive Solutions. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel we will address selected few questions at the end of the discussion. Over to you, Mr. Dhiman.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Shivani, and I'm really happy to be here today with all the esteemed panelists. We'll start with a brief introduction first. These are a few names who don't need an introduction. They've already been known in the industry in the XR space, but people who don't know make it introduction again. And can we start with a small round of introduction, maybe starting with Pradeep, sir?
Thank you, Munish. My name is Pradeep Khanna, and I'm talking to you from Sydney in Australia. It is 12:30 in the morning in Sydney, as we are 5.5 hours ahead of India. I did my BTech from IIT Delhi when a lot of you were not even born, in 1977. And I have been living in Australia for the last 30 years. I'm also the formal global delivery leader for IBM Australia and New Zealand, and I have built up a $3 billion business leveraging India, China, Philippines, Vietnam, Egypt, Romania, Argentina, Brazil. I've also been interviewed by ABC TV, and there is a whole big brand over there. At the moment, I'm very, very heavily immersed into virtual reality, augmented reality, and I have a few global roles in this. I am the Executive Director Asia Pacific for VRAR Association, which is the largest VRAR focused association in the world, with 70 plus chapters worldwide, a community of tens and thousands of people all over the world, and 4,400 plus companies registered with us. I'm also the Sydney president, as well as one of the global co-chairs for education. In my second role, I am, as part of IEEE global group, I'm working to do environmental scans, as well as to get the debate between open source and proprietary technologies, as well as standards in VRAR. From a third role, from global mindset, we are working to create a marketplace in VRAR. Now, fourth role, I'm helping IIT Delhi in emerging technologies and global engagement, and especially with the Alumni Association. My fifth role is that I'm an adjunct professor in a number of universities across Australia, Singapore, and India. In India, it includes MDI, SP Jain, IIS, a couple of IITs, and so on and so forth. My sixth role is I'm on advisory board of number of companies across Australia, Singapore, and India, and plus. So over to the next person.
Next I'll move as per the faces visible on my screen. So Sanan, why don't you go next? Thanks for your introduction. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Sanan Goyal. I'm from a company called Question What's Real. We primarily an electronic system design and manufacturing company, headquartered in India, and we are based out of several places, including Bangalore, Singapore, Korea, China. And our primary objective is to sort of restructure the current hardware development roadmap of what XR in general is. So we're coming up with multiple hardware initiatives, starting from Oral to VR1. VR1 is currently launched in India as India's first virtual reality, standalone virtual reality headset, and so on and so forth. We're really excited to be a part of this panel again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Ankush, next.
Yeah, thank you, Munish. Munish, So we are Yeppar. I'm the founder CEO of Yeppar, where we started like the journey in 4 years back when we were working with the use cases and giving kind of solutions to multiple industry from manufacturing, from automobile, giving them solution in training space, giving them solutions in image-based solutions, camera vision, and adding on to that, like we also build now these days, we are building solutions like virtual showrooms, giving virtual experiences in any kind of formulation which is required. So that the kind of service we are doing for the industry. Also, since we have product as well, so product we are working in AR try-ons for cosmetics, AR try-ons for watch, AR try-ons for shoes, stones, and also we provide services to different other, I mean, globally for multiple industry. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Ninant.
Thank you, Munish. Hi, I'm Chhaya. I'm the co-founder and COO of GoPhygital. We are an immersive tech company focusing on AR, VR, as well as gaming solutions, talking with and working with companies across various industry verticals, ranging from manufacturing, automobile, FMCG, including brands. We are based in Mumbai. We are a part of a larger design tech agency called Wits Interactive. Wits has been in the technology solutions space for the past 20 years now, building web and mobile-based solutions. And 4 years ago, we set up GoPhygital to build immersive technology solutions. As a group, Wits Interactive is around 60 people across Mumbai, Munich, and London. GoPhygital as a team is based out of Mumbai, but we work with customers across the globe in trying to solve any business problem that they may have using these immersive technologies.
Awesome. Good. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I'll start again with a going round question, but this is really the conversation starter. So, since the topic today is XR in sports, as in AR, VR in sports. So, if we can, all of you can share your initial thoughts on what do you feel about AR VR in sports, and anything you want to say as a conversation starter, your point of view. Can we start again? Pradeep, can you go first again?
Sure, Munish. Let me kickstart by saying that there is no dearth of use cases for applying XR in sports. First, let me clear, you see, where we are in immersive technologies today is that standards are still to come along, the taxonomy is still emerging. When I say extended reality, mixed reality, what does it mean for different people? It is totally different. But that apart, I think when we look at what is happening in immersive technology in sports, there are three dimensions that I think is worth looking at. One is looking at who are the different stakeholders or active people within the sports industry, and it goes right from players, and it goes on to the audience, it goes to the coaches, it goes to the sports association, broadcasters, streaming companies, sponsors, marketing agencies, and home devices. Plus, plus, plus. That is one dimension. Second is to look at where is it kind of impacting. And the areas where it is impacting is in terms of experiences, in terms of collaboration, in terms of training, in terms of marketing, and of course, in terms of safety and injury management, plus, plus, plus. The third dimension to look at is, what is the range and scale of, immersive technologies are we talking about? And that goes right from 360 to AR, VR to volumetric to so many different ways. And this leads to a different kind of a discussion altogether, which is in terms of, what is the future of a stadium? Or what is the future stadium looks like? How do we compare in-home experience, especially looking at the COVID kind of environment, to an outdoor experience? And there are so many other factors come into play, but this is where I would like to kickstart and open the discussion for everybody else to comment on.
Yeah. Sanan, what do you
Yeah,
think?
definitely. Like Pradeep rightly said, right? Immersive technologies in general. So primarily, we are building the next generation of personal computing, right? What is the use case of a computer? You can't really define to a particular segment, of course. So in the process of building these next generation of personal computers, we are to sort of to propagate this adoption. We are to find various use cases and implement them in various industry sectors, and sports being one of them. uh, One major misconception, I believe, in terms of when people are building use cases for sports, is that though it is absolutely amazing for training, pre-production, basically anything that has to do with training, simulation, and whatnot, and post as well in analysis, right? Immersive technologies work greatly for analysis, especially in terms of players' movements, their body posture, their sort of even emotions, right? The technology has been so advanced that we are able to sort of gather emotional quotient of the players while they're performing a certain action. But in terms of simulating an exact, uh, so to say, uh, scenario where it is to replicate a sports sort of action within the immersive ecosystem, where no matter how much perfect the haptics are, we are able to get the haptics right, is something that's long way to go. So in my perspective, it is right to focus these particular technologies more towards pre-production and post, where you're either using it for certain training modules, and of course, entertainment comes as a side use case, right? Training modules plus analysis is a perfect use case for sports and immersive technologies, and there's ample of use cases, like Pradeep rightly said.
Perfect. Ankush, why don't you go
Yeah,
ahead?
I would like to add on to what Mr. Pradeep said. Like he actually ended on a very good note. That is like, what is the future of stadiums? What I feel that VR can actually empower those games which are like underrated so far. Why? Because today the gaming industry, the sports industry works on the fan following or the kind of audience which goes into the stadium, which eventually turns into the revenue. But what about those games which people don't want to travel for or they don't want to take pain for to watch it? What if VR can enable for the experience? So tomorrow you say like if I talk about like any game in India, for example, badminton, I mean if I compare with the cricket, has got less traction. So what if we can watch games of badminton happening in a stadium, which is kind of getting a stream onto a VR environment on my laptop or on my HMD. So that is the kind of future which I see, that VR is going to turn around the whole gaming industry, not just for the popular sports, but also sports which are trying to find the space in popularity. So this is one, and also like AR. If I talk about AR, is already there in the system ecosystem. Like if we see those things hovering onto the ground when we are watching something on a cricket stadium, or when any presenter is trying to do some statics analysis. So these kind of effects which have already been there in AR to enhance the eventual consumer experience or the audience experience. I would say now this is the time where COVID has actually expedited this stuff, which was supposed to happen 5 years down the line. It is going to help us. I mean, help the whole ecosystem of VR. But I also feel that it should go. COVID should not last long for this. I mean, I really hope that next month or in the month of January we should have the vaccine. I'm not promoting COVID here, but what I feel, COVID has given another perception or vision to every one of us
Absolutely.
to solve
Agree.
problems.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in not just in sports, but yes, in every segment. AR, VR is trying to. I mean, people are trying to adapt it, and sports is one industry. Entertainment is one industry which is going to pick it fast, really fast.
Yeah. Didant,
So I think all three of them, Sanan and Ankush, made really good points. And like Pradeep said, the whole future of stadiums is going to change, right? I mean, sports is all about being a part of the experience as a spectator. I mean, yes, while as a player you are a part of the sport itself, the whole experience of going to the stadium, figuring out the tickets to buy, going there, getting a ringside view is what it was all about as a spectator. And like Ankush mentioned, COVID kind of changed that. We saw in the recent IPL that while the stadiums were empty, but obviously they're trying to give as close to realistic as possible the experience to spectators. And over there, that's where AR and VR can really help in living that experience. So when you're in the stadium, you can enhance that experience right from your waiting area. I think last year at NFL Dallas Cowboys did a really interesting AR experience for people who are just standing in the queue. You could take a picture of yourself with your favorite team, which was kind of like an AR experience booth. Or League of Legends did something where they had an AR dragon flying across the stadium. So one is the in-stadium experience. The second is the in-home experience, but with virtual reality, where you kind of get a ringside view while you're just putting on your VR headset. Coming to the second part of training, what Sanan mentioned, I mean, AR and VR can both give you a really detailed insight into the metrics. They can train you to help improve your performance as an athlete. So I think as both technologies, immersive tech from AR and VR perspective, whether you are a spectator of a sport or an athlete who wants to improve his or her game, AR, VR definitely plays a key role in both these scenarios.
Wonderful. So, yeah. So I'll go back to Ankush again. He, spoke about, couple of things that he has seen recently. And we know about, augmenting information on the stadium space, and really seeing those heat maps going live, and then seeing the ball trajectory and other stuff. So Ankush, if you could give us a little detailed description of something that you saw recently as the use case. Any of the sports. I'm not really bounding it by cricket only, but if you have seen any scenario where AR, VR getting applied on a real game happening, for a spectator or for an analyst point of view, if you want to, talk about something that you saw recently and you really liked it.
Yeah, so yes, I would like to talk about one of the use case, one of the solution which I'm building on. Yes, I've seen a lot of application happening onto the television. I mean, anything which is going to getting telecasted on the television, as you said, seeing the trajectory or seeing another aspects or articles of the article and which is moving into the space using AR. But I would like to talk about like what we are building, as I also said initially. And COVID actually gave this idea and created the whole thing. It is about like how can we make the similar experience which we get in a stadium on a web VR experience. So what is happening these days, like for example, if a badminton game need to be telecasted at multiple places, so audiences are having an experience like the we are connected together in this moment, and we would be watching that badminton stream, 2D stream in front of us.
Right.
That would that be possible that I can see you sitting on my left or right, and you're getting the first person view from the stadium as if you are going to sit, and then you can also communicate with each other like the way you would be communicating in real stadium, and you can cheer up for the game, which others can also feel. In a sim, so I that's what I hope I'm easy enough. I mean I'm easy enough to make people understand how what I'm trying to say. But that's it's all about creating a virtual stadium, which is going to give the flexibility to select the seat as per my convenience, and then it is going to remove the whole monotony of seeing the video in front of me, and then I am seeing, because the fun is like seeing the audience. I think here in whenever we go to stadium, the fun is not just watching the match. The fun is watching this audience. The fun is
Right.
like how audience is encouraging or
Yeah, the
cheering at the game.
enthusiasm that you see in the
Enthusiasm,
stadium. Yeah.
enthusiasm.
And
Yeah.
and in fact, one of the early examples of this particular, multicam setup where users are able to, choose which camera viewpoint they want to see from was Tata Sky. Tata Sky in, I believe, 2013 or 14 did this program where Tata Sky users are able to switch between different cameras after paying a little bit of premium amount in IPL. And,
Yeah,
with immersive technologies
similar,
where, yeah,
similar kind of
absolutely.
experience. I'm trying to say that similar, like the way like we can switch as per your choice, and
Yeah.
now just think of a like virtual stadium on your laptop, and
Mhm.
that there are audience on your right, on your left, and below you, and top of you at the back, and you can turn, you can interact
Absolutely. So
with the
adding an
students.
interactive layer on top of it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly. And you can see
Wonderful.
the match in front of you with people shouting around you. So that brings more, immersive experience.
Exactly. So now I'll move on to Pradeep. We had these wonderful use cases. Still, these things are in progress, and as we discussed in the initial times, that technology is still improving. So, what are the few things that you feel need to improve to actually make these kind of scenarios possible, plus acceptable? So possible is something which happens, but to make it acceptable and to make it reach everyone and be a normal for viewing the matches and being a part of the sport.
That's a very, very good question, Munish, because you see, there is one perspective of being a futurist, and having all the geeky liking, experiences having through. But the really question is that when does it become mainstream? And to that extent, I think it is also important to look at the fundamental question of what exactly is the difference between AR and VR. Because in 2019, I was invited to and spoke at 27 international conferences right from Vancouver, San Francisco, Seoul, Nanchang, everywhere in the world. And when I I found 20% people do not even understand the difference between AR and VR. And on average today, I speak at about 2 to 3 conferences a week, and I'm not too surprised. So let's kind of come back to what is this immersive technology, Let me say hypothetically, if we were having an in room, we were all sitting in one room, and we were real people sitting on real objects. That is the real world. On the other hand, if we wanted to get an experience of landing on Mars or something like that, can we get that? No, we can't unless we are Elon Musk. But we are not Elon Musk. So therefore, we create a new environment altogether, and then we provide that experience, and that is virtual reality. And as you go from the real world to the virtual world, in between, when you keep adding digital objects, you come down to different points in space over there. And the first space is that augmented reality, when you're augmenting digital objects to the real world. And the most common example is that if I were going to buy a chair in IKEA or something like that, and I scan the QR code, a digital image of the chair comes in front of me, and I can decide where to position it, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Now, looking at what is AR, VR, these technologies have been around for the last 25 years. So why are we now talking in terms of that? Are we are still heading towards a tipping point in the next 2 to 3 years? And what is the roadmap? And that has a corresponding correlation to what is going to happen in case of sports. And the reality is that when you look at all the different use cases that we've talked about, just imagine the kind of data flows which are taking place. An ordinary video file, how big the size of the file can be. Just imagine that you are kind of transporting a 3D model across, kind of what kind of a drain it will be on the telecom system or the network system. So the biggest driver which is reshaping immersive technology is 5G, because 5G enables large data points to be kind of transmitted very quickly, enables virtual collaboration, it takes away the latency and a couple of other elements out of this. And 5G has a roadmap of 7 years of coming to full functionality. So we see that immersive technology, including immersive technology in sports, taking a much wider shape over next 7 years, with the tipping point coming in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, along with, I see at the moment, most of the focus has been on the visual side and to a certain extent on audio. But what about multi-sensory immersive tech? Just imagine what happens in case of taste, smell, and so many haptics, of course, as we've been talking about for so common kind of a thing. When we integrate all of this into this, but for all of this to happen, the whole ecosystem must evolve. And that is where we see, we will remember 5 years down the road that launch of, Geo smart glasses by Tesseract, part of Reliance, will be a milestone in terms of offering, these services, immersive tech, as a service to the consumer. Because what that means is that once one major player comes in, then Airtel, Vodafone, everybody have to offer the same thing, and you will see the proliferation of, experience of sitting at home and how the broadcasters and other people kind of get onto it. So, in summary, the question really comes down to is that yes, where are we in terms of immersive tech as well as in immersive tech in sports at this particular point in time? So we are about 2 to 3 years further away from the tipping point, but we see increasing level of growth happening over the next 7 years. Number two, multi-sensory and 5G will be big players into this or big contributions towards as we move towards interesting experiences in immersive tech. Number three is that we see telecom companies to be major players in the immersive tech business, who will be, and this is not only in India, but all over the world. We are noticing the trend. They are acquiring or creating in-house immersive tech capability, and they will front end what we are seeing. And like, for example, in the case of India, you've got all those broadcasters and associations and all these people falling into play. But it is as we build up the ecosystem. So I see in the next 5 years globally, sports is the prime area, and take up in terms of experience. But where does India fall into that relative to the world is still up to question because infrastructure requirements are quite heavy. So these are some of the top of the mind thoughts.
Wonderful. So I'll move on to Ninant. Ninant, one of the things that we spoke about during our discussion is training using AR and VR.
Right.
So how do you feel, training using AR and VR will transform the current sports training scenario? What are the things that will get enhanced, and where are the areas where physical training is required instead of a virtual training?
So I think physical training will always be required as an athlete. You still will need to train. I mean, how much ever technology advances, you will still need to train yourself to improve your performance. AI and VR will enhance or aid the training and make it better by giving the right kind of insights and data analytics. So, for example, Nike has kind of created an LED track where you have an augmented reality display where you can place either against your own past performance, or you can choose whom you want to race against. So, I mean, for example, if I'm a track and field athlete and I want to race the 100-meter sprint, I can either improve upon my time, or I can say, hey, what does Usain Bolt do differently to be able to improve my performance itself? Or the other perspective. I think one of the earliest exposures which us as consumers had to how VR can be used for training is I remember the movie The Matrix, where Neo wanted to learn Kung Fu and Jiu-Jitsu, and he just got plugged into the Matrix, which was in a way kind of simulating an alternate reality. And he could learn how to fight, he could learn how to fly, all of that. So virtual reality, like when Pradeep said, creates a different simulation per se. And you can actually use that to train yourself.
Uh, I think we lost Ninand
Ninad,
in
yeah.
between. Yeah. So great. So we'll hear back from him. So I'll Sanan, next question is for you. Since, I'll ask you a hardware question. So what
Sure,
are
sure.
the few new things you feel came in the recent years, like last 2 3 years, which were a big leap in terms of giving a boost to XR, especially if you have something on the sports side.
Yeah, definitely. So there are a couple of examples, of
on this
course,
front?
apart from the hardware's offering that we are currently offering, which is oral and VR1. Oral primarily being audio blast. The idea of, again, so what we realized is, almost 50% of the people in the world wear spectacles, right? And 50% don't. Now, how do we convince these rest of the 50% of people to now start wearing technology on their head, right? We have to incentivize them with an appropriate cost factor as long with comfort on their head, right? So we came up with these set of glasses which are much more individual in nature to each of these different kind of users, so they're able to adopt something so similar to the usual form factor of spectacles, right? So those are primarily oral audio glasses, right? So the functions of these, again, I have one right here with me, is that you primarily just wear them, and it sort of incentivizes to use voice over touch, which is your phone. We've moved for 10 fingers typing on keyboards now to a very stupid binary input of two opposable thumbs. And, we really need to change that going ahead, because interaction in the spatial age, right? It's not going to be with these two thumbs. It's either going to be voice, gesture. We don't know yet, right? So research in terms of user experience is really important. Now, coming to sports very specifically, we've been doing research in eye tracking very specifically. So we're developing this particular hardware, which is a very ordinary spectacle, right? But has a very high frequency eye tracking device, which is able to sort of judge the motor functions of any player, right? And we've been piloting this particular hardware with a couple of pro esports gamers, right? Esports, again, being a new entry into the sports industry, right? It's quite picking up in India as well. And what it is able to do for the sort of managers of these players, right, is for them to be able to analyze whether the the motor dexterity of these players is on point while they're using a particular screen, so to say. Do they really need that next level of 80,000 rupee keyboard or a mouse? Do they really need that 120 refresh rate screen, right? So those are the things that we are able to do with these kind of hardwares. And of course, VR1 being a standalone device, we are able to without any wires, able to simulate different environments for different kind of use cases in sports as well. Of course, with eye tracking involved, we are able to analyze where the attention of the player is, on which point, where is he looking while he's bowling or batting, or whether he's dribbling a ball, whatsoever. So in terms of analysis, both from as simple as audio glasses to eye tracking to all the way to virtual reality, it's been a great leap. Obviously, like Ankush rightly said, COVID has expedited the adoption of immersive technologies as a whole, for sure. And yeah, and to end that point, right? Adoption again is a key form factor in immersive technologies, and it's not that we've not been, seeing immersive technologies around us. Broadcast AR, again, like Nina rightly mentioned, we were one of the teams that were part of the League of Legends setup that was done, the Dragon AR setup, and everyone sees these new sort of different kind of UIs popping up in IPL as well. Those are also, part of the broad immersive ecosystem. So the adoption has moved quite swiftly in the past years, both in sports and other industries, and we see it moving quite swiftly again in the next coming 2 to 3 years and becoming more mainstream.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sanan. So next I'll give a question to Ankush, and this is really something that, I want you to answer. So, imagine, you get unlimited power to do something in AR and VR. You
Yeah.
think about it and it happens. So, what is something that you would like to build? Either a AR device or a software or a content, what is one thing that you feel you would like to build, using that unlimited power in this space to, realize something, and that has to be related to sports, keeping this session in mind.
All right. So, keeping something in mind, like if I get the power, so I would like to say that what I see, which I'm also waiting for, is the hardware. A
Uh-huh.
hardware which is probably we have been seeing it, like what Facebook Reality Lab have just disclosed, what Sanan and Ninad has wearing is something the such kind of hardware which I would like to build, and I wish I could see everything happening in front of me. Yes, HoloLens is already there. Yes, VR devices like HTC Vive, Oculus are already there, but these are the things probably what we had faced like some 20-25 years back, like in Motorola, when the mobile Nokia Motorola phones, when they were this thick, and we have seen the evolution of the whole hardware. Yes, if I would like to build something, I would like to build an environment where, other than the sports, I would also like to share like what in sport. Other than the sport, what I would like to say that few years down the line, at every coordinate like X, we have like X, Y, Z, three coordinates in space. I'm saying that there is going to be another coordinate that is I in space. And this I is kind of the information which we are consuming from, which we would be able to consume using hardware like wearables. We would not be able to consume them like with naked eye. And this I could be anything. It can be direction. It can be anything around us.
Mhm.
And there would be a community of content developer designers who is going to fill the whole ecosystem or universe with this information. And now this same thing can be used in sports. This can same thing can be used in different segments within these sports. As I said, like I'm trying to build, that's what I'm building, which are the use case which I said. I'm trying to empower those sports which has not got the space on television because of the factor that people have not been following them, or the media is still not favoring them. We have seen the emergence of kabaddi these days in last few years, which was not. So there are many other games which still need to get traction, and VR can become a media to build that traction for those all community of that games, which people can directly, so we have to give the convenience to audience so that they should at least start experiencing those games, and VR can be the one, AR can be the one. So this
Wonderful.
is something which,
Yeah.
yeah, this is something
Yeah,
which
sounds interesting. So Pradeep sir, now one more question again on the same lines. We are trying to go sci-fi, but there are few research and there are few companies who are trying to tap directly the brain to simulate realities rather than you putting on a headset or having something on the ears. If we can somehow interface with the brain directly and send signals which are like simulation signals to show something or simulate something. You think that will be the ideal thing to happen in terms of virtual reality, like we'll enter the matrix with those kind of equipments or stuff?
Sure.
Yeah.
So let me answer that question from two perspectives. Number one is to look at how does sports rank in terms of take up of VR, AR as compared to other industries. The reality is that the number one industry taking up VR, AR at the moment is entertainment and games. Number two is education and training. Number three is health. Number four is real estate, construction, architecture. Then number five is travel, tourism, defense, mining, automobile, aeronautical. Sports per se, if we take it away, if we take it as part of entertainment, it ranks fairly high. But if you do take it as away from entertainment, good question. Now comes the question of between VR and AR. The reality is that VR is the more dominant or more mature technology at the moment, but the future is more about AR. What we have seen in the times of COVID is there is a widespread take up of AR and more of phone and tablet based AR, which does not require you to buy any head mounted device or a smart glass, etc. And that is the trend that we see in the future, is that if I were to go down and look at what, if we put my futurist hat in India kind of a situation, I can very clearly see that in years ahead, with the configuration with telecom companies, it is going to be AR which is going to be more dominant insofar as this is concerned. VR will definitely continue to be there, but VR will start becoming more specialist, because the reality is that at the moment, when we talk of the global brands, none of the global brands are available directly by those companies in India. Whether that situation changes or not is a different thing. Then that is very, very good for companies like UWR, because that is what is a great opportunity for them. And that is what they are doing, is to create a manufacturing base on a device based kind of infrastructure. That's number one. Number two is that, can you imagine that, all of us are sitting with a head mounted device 24 by 7? No, it cannot, doesn't happen. So, number three is that the Indian consumer is a value conscious consumer. They will want their
Absolutely.
pound of buck for every dollar that they are spending. And number four is that mobile is the highest take up. We've got more than 1 billion mobiles and more than 500 million smartphones in India. So I see the phone based AR taking off very strongly in popular sports like cricket, etc., in the distant future.
Wonderful. So that was like a very clear description on the trends. So we are now left with a few minutes, and I've got a couple of questions from the audience. So the question that we got is, how is AR and VR integrated in Indian sports industry, and what are the bottlenecks that companies face? So we discussed this already, but any one of you would like to answer it specifically?
Yeah, I mean, primarily you are already seeing, what's called broadcast AR in various sports events, right? Now coming to streaming directly to head-mounted displays is something that's primarily uh, the bottleneck, primarily due to bandwidth of data that people are receiving, and of course hardware adoption, right? So those are the two things primarily that's happening. Again, like Pradeep said, phone-based AR or AR which is based out of currently existing devices that people are already utilizing is something that's going to pick up early on before specialized devices that people are, well, our goal specifically is to offset that and be able to deliver as much as devices at a comfortable cost proposition as well in India, and be able to propagate this whole journey of being able to broadcast 360 immersive sporting events directly onto VR. And some companies, in fact, are already doing it. Next VR was one of the companies who just got acquired by Apple, I believe. We were partners prior to that. Were primarily broadcasting NBA Live immersive directly onto our headsets as well. And we see IPL also soon coming onto these platforms because of the huge viewerships. Having that VIP box sort of a perspective, everyone wants that. Everyone wants to be on the field, and so on. And just to come back to the previous question on neuro inputs on AR VR, right? There is already research going on how immersive technologies can be controlled by certain brain functions, and we are also working on this particular uh, initial prototype where just the concept of click, right? In the future, it's not going to be a button, it's not going to be a controller, it's not going to be this pinch. Just the function of click is something that a brain can control. So all you have to do is look somewhere and just think yes. Something that is already in the pipeline, and it's going to be in certain so to say hardware as well as softwares going on ahead. Please, Manish, go ahead.
Wonderful. So another question we have right now is, it's again related, but are the smart slash virtual stadiums are a thing in India, and how does the road look ahead for these stadiums?
Yeah, so these stadiums, virtual stadiums are not there in India right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And when we say that when we would have virtual stadiums, there would not be any India, there would not be any US. They're going to be on cloud. They're going to be on in the universe in the soft. So there would not be any geography which is going to get attached to it.
absolutely.
And the road for a stadium is I see that someone need to start and the media and someone need to support because when we talk about games there is only not one community like developers who work for it, there are other verticals who promote it, so everyone has to sports council and all, everyone has to promote. So I guess the way forward is like if everyone supports, which is I think it is going to be beneficial win-win situation for everyone. So I guess in the coming years, it is going to come in the mainstream. And as Mr. Pradeep said, 5G, people are saying that it is like on the doorstep. In Indian ecosystem,
Definitely.
I see that yes, even if the 5G would be launched, we still would have teething problems to experience data, but it is going to help. It is going to help. So that's the kind of roadmap which I see for the virtual stadiums.
Wonderful. So it's time's up now, but it was really wonderful talking to all of you and hear your views. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel and answering our questions and enlightening us with your point of views and your knowledge. So thanks again, and we got Shivani back on the panel. So over to you, Shivani.
Thank you, Mr. Dhiman. Thank you all the speakers for making this discussion so engaging, and special thanks to our audience and our sponsors, Creative Partner Ethnos, Institute Partner Asian Institute of Design, Association Partner VRAR Association, and our Knowledge Partner that's here. Thank you very much. We are signing off, but we do have another session lined up for you. Join back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Satan. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye
guys.
bye.
See you.